For those people unfamiliar with my voice, my name is Peter. We did our KISC training. I'm going to talk a little bit about KISC in a few minutes. You can really get a word called duplication going, and I'll see if I can explain. Well, if that's me, then what I wanted to do for duplication purposes to expand myself is I wanted to teach that stuff one level deep. And what I found was one of the first guys I trained, by coincidence his name was Peter. When I trained Peter, I found that, you know what, that was really cool. I learned it and he learned it. But there was a little bit of a problem. The next person that I got a chance to work with, by coincidence only, by strange things, his name was Peter as well. So that was fun, right? 3 guys named Peter in the same office. So I was like Pete, repeat, and repeater, you know, that kind of a thing. I found the next person we trained, I'm going to call him Roger. I was getting really good because I would have to train Pete, and I trained Repeat, and we trained Roger, and then after that, right, I had to train another guy. So this was really cool because my skills were going up, my personal performance was hitting the roof, but I wasn't getting a lot of duplication. So I needed Pete to be able to train somebody. Because if I could get Pete to train somebody on his own, and better yet, if I can get Pete to teach Teresa how to teach somebody else, I could be completely removed from the situation. If I had a whole bunch of people that were teaching people how to teach people how to teach people, we'd have an organization that could grow without me. It wasn't dependent on me. Well, here was the problem. Complex was not the way to go. Because if it became really complex, then what would happen would be our speed of duplication would go down. If you had to come to school to learn all this stuff, then we would be slowed down by how long school was. I got to build an organization fast. I have to build an organization that's not reliant on me or my leaders. We have to build this thing so it'll grow. We have to bring the level of competence up. We have to bring the level of incompetence down. We have to make sure that more people can do this stuff. We have to figure out how they can apply this stuff. We call it our KISC formula, K-I-S-C. KISC stands for Keep It Simple Circle. So if you're drawing this out, you see a big circle with a guy inside there, and he's really happy. And here's the deal. I also draw a big S, which would stand for success. For those people that think success is judged only by money, let's throw the money in there. When we keep it simple and we're inside our keep it simple circle, we are the happiest, we're having the most fun, and we're also making the most money. Now, for those people that insist in complicating things, here's the deal. When you're outside your keep it simple circle, you're unhappy, you're sad, you're frustrated. So what I always learned was keep it simple. Keep it inside your keep it simple circle. If you're complicating the heck out of this stuff, chances are things are going to slow things down. That's our KISC training. Your keep it simple training should go like this to you. Is what I'm going to do tomorrow part of my keep it simple circle? And if the answer is no, then don't do it. Let your competition do that. That's why they grow slow. So if you're trying to make sure that your business grows fast, learn the KISC, K-I-S-C formula. Well, in addition to that stuff, the difference sometimes between success and failure, when you can tell it versus when you can show it, every time you can, make sure you show it. Well, here's another one of those little tips. Telling versus asking, you should always ask. Those are simple things that if people that just talked a lot would show more and or ask more would make such a measurable difference in what they do. So in reference to that, here's our little board game. And we've probably all played board games before. Well, every other board game I've ever played, they usually have a start and they usually have a finish. But here's the way the board game works. So you start out wherever you start out, and usually there's like some object that you might move. You get a piece of dice, and then you kind of go down this little track, and you finish wherever you finish. Your competition by design is going to follow those rules. So every time they tell something, they stand still. Every time they ask something, they move forward. Now, you have a choice because it's your game, but those are the rules. So somebody might ask you a question, can I do this part-time? And we're going to say something like, the good old if would you, that's tool number 1. If I could show you you can do it part-time, would you want to? So the rules of the game, tell it you stand still, ask it you move forward. And the name of the game, of course, in any board game is to go from the start to the finish. Most people on the board game, when somebody would ask, can I do this part-time, they usually start talking. Of course you can, they say. You can do this whenever you want. 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week, and they start talking. Then all of a sudden, one question leads to another question, leads to another question. It's all over the place. How about somebody says, well, how much can I make? And you might start talking. Well, you can do whatever you want, and you can do this and blah, 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 blah. And I've actually heard people start to say things that I wish I wasn't saying. I don't know how that happened, right? How that happened. It's like the more you start talking, it's like a quicksand conversation. I've also heard people get really nervous or sound defensive and all that sort of stuff. I said, you know, this talking thing ain't all it's cracked up to be, but I guess that's what most people do. They answer questions. Think about the rules of the game. Someone says to me, if I'm one of these players, how much does it cost to join? And I start talking. If I just start answering questions, where do I move? The answer is, if you remember the rules, when you talk or you tell, you just stand still. What's our competitor do in the same situation? Somebody might ask him, can I do this part-time? And he'll say, listen, if I showed you could, would you want to? And what happens then? I'm sitting here standing still. He starts moving. Now, he may not slide right from start to finish on that question, but he moved further along on the board game. People that talk stand still. People that ask questions, they move forward. So what would you do? Guy says, listen, I don't have any time. You might say things like, well, if I showed you how you can figure it out, would you want to enjoy the benefits of working with a great company like ours? He says, yeah, if you can show me. He moves further down the game. You're standing still because you have choices. Your competition just does it the way it's supposed to. If they ask a question, or they say an objection, or they say some stuff, instead of talking, we're going to ask it. So the difference between telling and asking could be huge. If you don't remember it, you'll never use it. With this little board game, now you can remember. Because these are the basic rules of the game, and if you just played here, you're okay. Now, I'm going to throw in a word called resistance. When there's resistance, everything is amplified. So somebody might say, I'd rather go back and work my second job, and they say in a way that would imply resistance. Well, now what happens if you tell? Not only do you stand still, but you run the risk of sliding backwards. On the other hand, when you ask, sometimes you can go woo, all the way down towards the finish line. That'd be pretty cool. But just think of the basic KISC, keep it simple circle. You're going to either ask it or you're going to tell it. Remember the board game. The biggest challenge with our industry is most people complicate the heck out of this business. You can do that, but you know what's going to happen when you complicate the heck out of this business? You slow yourself down, you frustrate yourself, and you minimize the level of duplication that you can actually get down to. You keep it simple where anybody can do it if they really want to learn, and you can grow that thing faster than anything. Our pledge is to make sure we give you more in value than you'll ever give us in your money. Why is that? Because you becoming successful in your home-based business probably means something to you, and in many aspects it also means something to us.